Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. What this means is, if you want different results, you're going to have to do different things. But what things do you do differently? Where can you make changes to have the biggest impact? Well, this is where lean thinking comes in. Because at its core, lean thinking is about doing things differently, but smartly. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at lean thinking, looking at what it is, how does it work, and how can it help us maximize value whilst minimizing waste. So, is it a tool? Is it a culture? Well, lean is actually just the Western interpretation of the Toyota Production System, or TPS for short. They developed this in the 1930s to rival the likes of Henry Ford, and I think it's safe to say that they succeeded, because at the time of writing, based on sales, they're the largest car manufacturing company in the world. Then, in 1991, the writers James P. Womack and Daniel T. Jones revised the TPS system so that its fundamental principles, with careful tailoring, could be applied in all sectors, not just manufacturing. And this is because lean isn't a one-off tool or a singular process, but rather a philosophy, a strategy-enabling mindset, or a journey over time to become more efficient. Or, as Womack and Jones themselves put it, lean is producing more and more with less and less, whilst getting closer and closer to exactly what the customer wants. That all sounds simple enough, so how do we do it? In lean, there are 5 key principles: value, value stream, flow, pull, and perfection. But to understand what each of these are and how these principles play their part in the lean process, we're going to be taking a look at them through the lens of a hypothetical business: Bob's Bonnie Brownies. Firstly, we have value. This is the worth of the product or service you are intending to provide. A critical point with this principle, though, is that value can only ever be determined by the customer, which can make it pretty elusive to begin with. However, we can seek to discover what they want through careful value analysis, thereby finding what they value and then making a product or service that they would be willing to purchase. Let's use Bob's Bonnie Brownies to explore this concept a little further. Let's say that Bob has done some research and found that within the area he lives, no one makes fresh brownies. The supermarkets have packaged ones that sell okay, but they constantly receive 3 big complaints from customers. 1, they aren't fresh. 2, they're the cakey style of brownie rather than the proper fudgy style of brownie. And 3, there are never any gluten-free options. Now, we've clearly established that the brownies the supermarkets sell have value, as they're still being sold. But if Bob could fix the 3 complaints and make brownies that were fresh, fudgy, and free of gluten, then he would be adding value to the product and thus may lure in more customers, and furthermore, they may be willing to pay a little bit extra for the increased value Bob has made. Next up, we have value stream. This is all of the value-adding actions taken from start to finish required to make a specific product or service for the customer. In the case of Bob's Bonnie Brownies, this could be everything from ordering in the right ingredients to melting the butter before it's mixed into the batter to get those really fudgy brownies that Bob learned the customers wanted, all the way up to packaging and distributing the brownies to the various outlets. And this is where some might stop, but Bob goes one step further in gathering customer feedback, the voice of the customer. But that's a video for another day. Back to the previous principle. It could also mean a host of other methods by which value is added. For example, if Bob's bakery is far away from the busiest parts of town, then he might consider selling a pop-up there on the days where it's busiest, thus increasing the convenience of purchasing a brownie and thus adding value. The next principle is flow. This is about ensuring all the steps in the value-added process move along in a harmonious, synchronized fashion, or for want of a better word, they flow. This is all about the continuity of value-added activity and the compression of lead times. In the example of Bob, let's say that Bob is working on the batter for a new batch of brownies. Once the batter is ready, he switches on the oven to preheat for 1 hour. Well, this is now 1 hour of dead time that Bob is adding into his process. Instead, Bob could have the ovens preheated whilst he is making the batter, so as soon as it is ready, he can get those brownies cooking. This will be a great example of compressing lead times to improve flow. Following this, we have pull. Pull focuses on the concept of only supplying the product or service when it is desired or pulled by the customer. In the case of Bob and his Bonnie brownies, this could look like the following. Monday through to Thursday, things are slow but steady at the Bonnie Brownie Bakery. But on Friday, after the school's let out, there is always a massive surge of customers. This indicates to Bob that there is a bigger pull for brownies on Fridays in the mid-afternoon. This means he needs to make more brownies on Friday in preparation for this huge influx of customers. At the same time though, it would be silly of him to make the same number of brownies Monday through to Thursday as he does on Friday, as historically there isn't the same level of pull. And so Bob would end up wasting a whole load of brownies. On the other hand, Bob can't make the same amount of brownies on Friday as he does Monday through to Thursday, as he would be missing out on a big opportunity. Therefore, Bob needs to be smart and only make brownies when there is pull from the customer to do so. This is called external pull, where the customer is someone outside of the business. However, we can also think about pull as being internal, with each mini process within the business having its own internal customer. For example, within Bob's Bakery, the batter team have their own customer, which is the oven team. You see, they can't push the batter onto the oven team whenever they want to, because the ovens might not be hot enough yet, or they might still be baking the last batch of brownies. Instead, they have to wait for the oven team to pull the order of batter. This is an example of internal pull. Lastly, we have perfection. This is about continually striving to remove waste from all your activities whilst improving towards, well, perfection. What this perfection will look like will differ from business to business, but some typical examples of what this might look like are getting the customer exactly what they want, when they want it, the first time around. It could also be continually reviewing your processes to remove non-value adding steps as much as is practically possible. With Bob's Bonnie brownies, perfection could look like a review of how many chocolate chips are needed to maintain that lovely bite that the customers enjoy. If Bob realizes that 20 grams of chocolate chips per batch is all he needs rather than the previous 40 grams, then he has still provided the customer with what they want whilst reducing a waste in production. A similar strive for perfection could be brownies boxed up on the counter, already ready to go on those busy Fridays we mentioned earlier, so Bob isn't having to box them up individually when he's experiencing the rush. This would not only reduce stress for Bob, but would also mean the customer isn't having to wait, getting them exactly what they want when they want it. So what do these 5 principles achieve? Well, there are 2 key benefits. The first is improved products and services. Lean thinking helps you get closer to what the customer actually wants, which can help you not only maintain your current customer base and improve their satisfaction levels while you're at it, but also helps you to potentially draw in new customers as well. The second benefit is a reduction in waste, which can look like saving time, money, resources, even workplace stress, which I'm sure you'll agree are all positives, which only begs the question, what does waste look like? What is waste? Well, waste is all of the activity and materials consumed that provides no benefit to the customer's requirements. The 8 usual suspects of waste can be found within the acronym UTIMWOOD, which stands for Unrealized People Potential, Transportation, Inventory, Motion, Waiting, Overproduction, Overprocessing, and Defects. A useful way you can identify where you have this waste is by taking a look at your process activities and seeing which of the following 4 categories they fit into. First up is value-added activities. These are activities that add value to your products or services. Next is business improvement activities. These are activities that don't add any value to the product or service, but they do help improve the running of the business. Number 3 is necessary non-value adding activities. These are activities that don't add value to the product or service, but they are wholly necessary for the business to function. And finally, we have non-value adding activities. These are activities that don't add any value to the products or services and are completely unnecessary for the business to function, which is also why we call these ones waste. So that's what waste is, and it's a good start on where to find it. So how much waste is typical? Well, according to the Lean Enterprise Research Centre at Cardiff University, we know the following statistics. That in a physical production environment, like manufacturing, value-added activity only accounts for 4% of the overall activity. Whereas in an information environment, like an office-based business or in retail, it only accounts for 1%. Business improvement activity accounts for about 1% in both environments, and necessary non-value added activity accounts for about 35% of all activity in physical product environments and 49% in an information environment. Which means, you guessed it, that non-value adding activity or waste activity accounts from 49% to 60% of all activities in their respective environments, which is absolutely staggering. Now, I know what you might be thinking, those waste numbers are way too high. There's no way my company has as much waste as that. And maybe, but do you recognize any of the following activities or issues in your own company? Preparing unnecessary reports, delays due to batching, working with badly designed IT systems, firefighting and crisis management, working from unreliable information, checking over other people's work, too many meetings or committees, progress chasing, doing things others have already done, obtaining authorization, the end products not being fit for purpose, and dealing with failure demand, also known as customer complaints. If so, then those previous numbers I mentioned are probably starting to make sense, and your business could be running with an excess of waste. Why start with lean? Well, if your organization can afford to tolerate avoidable waste to the extent of 50% of all its activity, overburden individuals and resources, and manage excessive peaks and troughs of activity, then you don't need to do things differently. On the other hand, if you'd like your organization to reduce its running costs, work smarter, not harder, banish waste, increase the quality of its products or services, increase the certainty of delivery of those products and services, increase professional quality of life, and improve the bottom line, then you probably want to start doing things differently. And lean thinking is a good way to start. If you'd like to learn more about lean thinking or how to apply lean to your own business, then feel free to get in touch with us here at Viable Ventures. We can't wait to help you reach your full potential. Thank you so much for watching.